After a brief break over the holidays and a fun romp with a non-championship round, our drivers are ready to get back to business. Harkening back to their roots, we return to the Legends cars, and once again, it's at a tiny bullring oval. Lanier will certainly keep them all busy as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the South Sound Speedway E-Series. You'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Lanier Speedway has seen a change of hands and a different look in recent years, but here on the sim, it's the same as it ever was. To reacquaint ourselves, let's head to our track guide.
Lanier National Speedway, now known as Lanier Raceplex, finally started seeing racing again here just a few years ago. Before the track went silent in 2011, it was a common feature on touring short track series schedules across the southeastern United States. From super late models, street stocks, and legends, they all were here. The Wayland Modified Tour and ARCA even made some stops here as well. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, the Grand National Series, now Xfinity Series, made 5 stops here. The last, 1992, won by eventual NASCAR Cup Series champion and fellow iRacer, Bobby Labonte. The track has since reopened and been given a facelift. Nowadays, mostly go-karts and legend cars takes their turn around this facility, but occasionally, the rumble of V8s can be heard, and not just at nearby Road Atlanta, as super late models have raced around Lanier as recently as November of 2019, as a prelude to that year's Snowball Derby in Pensacola. Enjoy today's race.
Well, Lanier with the Legends cars is going to be a combination that's familiar to pretty much all oval drivers, as they've had to probably set foot in this combo at least once on their way up. But for those unfamiliar, why don't you tell us what it's going to be like from inside the cockpit here, DJ?
Well, Joe, it is going to be a patience game. Really getting this right in the Legends car is all about being nice and patient on the brakes. You can't jab on the brakes too hard when you come in. You've got to really do a nice bit of brush braking, trail braking to get that car rotated. And then because of the twitchy characteristic of these Legends, you've got to be equally soft coming onto the throttle. You get too hard with it, it's going to start to go. And one of the things that I honestly think makes Lanier so special in terms of short tracks in these Legends cars is you want to take the earliest apex possible. The way these corners flow, if you try to take a late apex, you're just going to scrub too much speed off of the entry. You want to apex early, try to get the cars out to the outside wall and set up for that next corner and get into a really, really nice rhythm. It's really one of those tracks that if you can get into the zone, get focused in, you can really start to pull away.
That really is shocking as well, how wide of a track it is, especially for these little Legends machines. But before we get to the track itself, we want to remind you that this broadcast is brought to you by Key Property Services. Key Property Services, Inc. is a locally owned full-service property management, real estate, and construction contracting company. KPS has been serving the greater Clark County area for over 30 years. For more information, visit kpsinc.net. Key Property Services, where service is the key. It is also brought to you by United Roofs. As specialists in residential and commercial roofing services, they're dedicated to providing customer service that is second to none. Whether you have a new construction project or it's time for repairs, they offer the roofing services you need. To learn how to book a free estimate, go to unitedroofs.com. Now, let's take a glance at the championship to start off. And DJ, how are we sitting currently as we are now 6 rounds past?
Well, Travis Barnes is sitting atop of those championships with 187 points. Isaiah Gill, though, right behind him, only 8 points back, and Eric Johnson Jr. still within spitting distance, only 14 points back. So that really is the key battle for first right now. Chris White and Andy Johnson in a good battle for fourth. They're about 33 points back of Barnes in first. They are not out of the realm of possibility for overtaking, but it's going to require a picture-perfect second half of this season.
Now, in case we have viewers who aren't sure what exactly they're about to see, we've got race details for today, and it's the Legends Ford 34 Coupe. This is a car that is used in many drivers bringing up in the real world for oval racing as well here on the sim. It is a 120 lap race that they will be competing in out here. And that sounds like a lot, but you have to remember that the laps around here are through in about 15 seconds. They will have caution flags, but it is up to the race control discretion, and that is not the iRacing race control. That is the human stewards that are running this thing currently. They will have also a competition caution at halfway for drivers to be able to take fuel and tires as well. So should be a fun one out here. Right now they're just in the midst of their drivers meeting. They'll get back out on track in the qualifying in just a few moments. If we can take a look, especially from above, get a sense just of the size of the car compared to the width of the track, DJ. And there you can see it right there. I mean, it almost makes it seem more like a circle to these things.
Oh yeah, these Legends are just absolutely dinky coming around a big wide track like Lanier. And yet the funny part of it is there's really only one good line for these guys to run, and that is getting down to the low side. You're not going to see a lot of passing on the outside because of the way the power to weight ratio, the twitchiness of these cars, the way that works. Trying to dive down or to go high, carry momentum, it really doesn't work. You've got to work your way to the inside of the car in front of you. So the best way to do that is to throw an over-under. I talked earlier about how you want to apex early. That's the best way to get around. Well, the best way to get a pass is to apex late, try to carry a little bit more speed around and almost throw that sort of reverse crossover slider line like you see in a dirt race. So that is going to be the way, and you can see riding on board here with Sean Jones just how much you are constantly sawing at that wheel. You can't breathe before it is time to get back onto the brakes. A little bit of brush braking there through that corner and get right back on the power. And before you know it, you're back at the next set of corners.
Now, we did hear some discussion from the organizers as well as the drivers that the tires on these cars will last quite well, so we don't expect that to be a talking point. That said, one thing that I've found from my time hopping into these things, which they are a lot of fun, I will admit, is they do seem to whip around pretty easily. They're very twitchy.
Oh, they're incredibly twitchy. You have to be super, super careful. If you get into something even resembling a tank slapper in these cars, you will be in the wall faster than you can possibly blink. So you've got to be very, very soft and very, very controlled with your inputs. And it makes a lot of sense considering these cars are largely used in real life for training, for coming up through this short oval series. So you want to have a car that's a little bit more, that'll, let's say, overemphasize any of your mistakes. That's exactly what this car does. It's very similar to the Skip Barber car on the road racing side of iRacing.
And we've got qualifying started now. They get 3 laps to put a fast time in. It is their best lap that counts, as they'll get about 5 minutes to do it. Plenty of time for them to get one in. Watching Ryan McLeod currently, who is off and on his way. In fact, I think he's going to be the first to set a flying lap here as the 88 comes around 3 and 4. Let's see what kind of marker he's going to get for the rest of the fields. 15.3. Who else is going to manage to challenge that? Waiting for the next one to come through. Andy Johnson is going to be that person who takes the provisional pole away.
Yeah, if what we saw in practice was any, and there goes Travis Barnes coming in with a 14.68. There you see Matthew Duchanowski getting a little friendly with that outside wall and taking full advantage of that twitchy car, getting spun around. I was going to say, though, about a 14.6 is about what's going to be fast. Here comes Eric Johnson Jr., one of the title contenders. He puts in a 14.7. That's going to put him into second.
Still waiting on 3 cars to put a time down. One of them, Isaiah Gill, pretty fast, is yet to get moving. Now he's out on the track as we watch Dagenstein, currently sitting 9th on the timing sheets, and he's going to stay in 9th and do no better unless somebody goes faster than him, because his 3 qualifying laps are up. So in fact, Scott's just warming up from here on out. Looks like all 3 of our cars yet to set a time are now on track, including Torres, Gill, and Jones. Torres spins it, though, so that one won't really be much of a lap for him, as Isaiah Gill and Sean Jones get their first times in. Jones, the 15.3, actually goes to 11th behind Dagenstein, but Gill is up on the pole.
Hello, great lap there from Isaiah Gill. There you see him on your screen working another lap. Looks like that was a bit of a cool down there for Isaiah, but amazing lap. Here comes Torres finally completing his lap, able to get this one nice and clean. He comes in with a 15.5. That's going to put him 12th, so he is not going to be moving from where he was without it, but Gill puts in another time at a 15.27. Very slower last 2 laps there from Gill. Torres coming across the line again with a 14.9. That's going to move him up the charts a little bit. He'll be starting off in 8th there.
And Gill and Travis Barnes on our front row are split by 11 thousandths of a second. So it will be extremely tight up at the top. Could be down to who runs a more perfect race between them after 120 laps. Our qualifying is set then. So let's go through our starting order here for round 7 of the South Sound Speedway E-Series. Will be Isaiah Gill on the pole with Travis Barnes starting in the 2nd position. Eric Johnson Jr. good enough for 3rd today, with Andy Johnson starting in 4th. Jeff Peterson will be P5 at the drop of the green, and rounding out the first half of the field, it is Christopher White starting in 6th.
In 7th is going to be Derek Presley, followed by Chris Torres, able to bump his way up to that 8th spot. Matthew Duchanowski in 9th place, followed by Ryan McLeod in 10th place. Lining up 11th is going to be Scott Degenstein, and then Sean Jones rounding out your field in P12.
And you talked about the low line being the desirable place to be in terms of quick laps around here. Do you think that means that this qualifying could be very decisive in the race itself?
I do and I don't, Joe. Honestly, starting off on that inside line, you're going to have an advantage, but you can get down to that inside line. It's not one of those tracks where you can't make a pass whatsoever. If you're able to position the car off of the corner, carry a little bit more speed out of the exit, you can get your car down to the inside and try to do it. Now, obviously, if you're the leading car in that situation, you're going to want to be throwing a little bit of a block, try to get that car positioned where they're not going to be able to do it. But I think you will see a decent amount of passing, a little bit of sliding back and forth. So it'll be an interesting race. Every time I've either been out running a Legends in this car or I've watched Legends in this car, it is certainly action-packed all the way through the field.
Well, let's hope we get action here today for 120 laps as we're getting ready to grid up. Now, for those of you who were watching our graphic as we came in and noticed Brazelton, Georgia, if you're a road racing fan, you might be saying to yourself, why is that familiar? Well, that's because Road Atlanta is also there, and Road Atlanta is so close that it's literally across the street from this oval. And that's not an exaggeration. That's an actual use of the word literal, that it is across the street. So sometimes if you go on the higher views here in iRacing, you can just see a bit of it here. And likewise, you can see this track from the blimp views over in Road Atlanta. Just about have everybody on the grid here. We'll get 2 laps behind the Mustang pace car, and then we'll get the green flag and we'll get going, DJ.
And get going we will. This is going to be a good race, I think. And the competition caution obviously getting thrown halfway through. So everybody's going to come into the pits, take their service, and then the service will throw a yellow flag to bunch everybody back up, and we will get a restart there. But the biggest thing to keep here is that the real race stewards, Joe, so important on a short track like this. If somebody spins, able to get off out of the way, they're not going to throw a yellow if they can get back and going. So hopefully that'll keep some real good green flag action all the way through.
Yeah, we've seen it affect some of the racing so far this season, where drivers who were doing quite well just spun off, didn't hit anything, and it disadvantaged them to a great degree because there was no need for a caution. So hopefully drivers will be able to keep it pointed forward here as the pace car now leads them around. It is pretty decent conditions on the track itself at only 82 degrees Fahrenheit. As we mentioned, the tires probably not going to be too much of a concern for the drivers over the course of their stints. Even still, I see a few that are trying to get them warmed up and prepped.
I was going to say the only thing that could be a little tricky is just getting the full heat into these tires. 82 is just a hair on the cold side for running a short track like this. You normally want to see it between about 85 to 95 is the perfect zone, but here they go, lining all up. Everybody taking their lead off of Isaiah Gill as they work their way through turns 3 and 4. Pace car dives off.
Green flag is out, and Gill gets a decent jump over his rival. Looks like Barnes not going to be able to reply, and I think Scott Dagenstein, well, I thought he was starting from the pits because our time and scoring was a little wacky for a moment, but now it has caught up. Oh, in second place already going to Eric Johnson Jr. as Barnes might lose third. Oh, and did he get a little tap there as he lost connection? That's going to spin Andy Johnson around. Will we get a caution? No, they're going to let it go.
I think looking at that lap, Joe, we had a couple of spinners, Johnson, White, and Peterson, all spinning off in one way, shape, or form. But this battle for the front there, you see Isaiah Gill putting in the fastest time, but Eric Johnson Jr. really starting to hassle in that blue number 14, keeping right up behind him, not letting Gill slip away too much.
I think Christopher White and Jeff Peterson, 2 of the drivers involved in the early problem at the end of lap 1. Meanwhile, we stay with Gill being chased by Johnson Jr. Don't forget about Travis Barnes, still in it. Despite his slight internet hiccups, he seems to have got it under control. And now very much on the back of our leader, Eric Johnson Jr., starting to look at alternative lines.
He's trying to prove me wrong here, Joe, making that outside line work to his advantage, trying to see if there is anything happening to get by Isaiah Gill, but Gill covering off that inside line, holding it down nice and easy. That number 24 car hugging that yellow line. You can dip your car a little bit below it. It's not nearly as rough as it is on the super high banked oval. You can flirt with it a little bit more, but you don't want to go too far, otherwise that is a one-way ticket to spin.
Now, we do have a lot of racing left, and I think the 14 is thinking the same thing I am, which is he's got time to try and make something happen as he's backed off of Isaiah Gill and waiting patiently. Another little blip from Travis Barnes. His internet just not behaving here today. They are yet to lap a car, but the first one up, if they do, looks like it's going to be Jeff Peterson.
It does. Peterson, one of those early spinners, and you see there on the last lap, oh, we've got another spin from Torres making a good move. There he goes.
Well, that was a pass. I think Dichinowski able to get by. Yes, indeed. Wide into the first corner. Torres opened the door, and Dichinowski's not going to be asked twice, so that'll get him 5th place. Next on his list is Derek Presley in P4, just ahead.
Yeah, he is. He's about 0.3 up the road. There is Presley, that number 4 machine going there. You see Matthew Dichinowski proving what I said, getting low. But here comes the 99 of Chris Torres, diving out of the inside, almost washes up, gets those left tires down onto the yellow line, gets very squirrely coming off the 4, though, has to back off, and that's going to reseed the position to Matthew Dichinowski.
Wow, 2 cars in a row finding it a little bit too tricky to get it onto the apron there. So that'll possibly make them slightly gun shy as they continue through this race. Let's go back to our leaders because Johnson Jr. is once again right up on top of Gill. And it seems that Travis Barnes has picked up the pace a little bit as well and almost gets into the back of the 14.
He has. I was watching those last couple of laps there, Joe. Johnson trying to experiment with that high line, and it allowed Barnes to really catch up to him, start to pull up very, very close to the leaders here. So all 3 of these guys, some of the most seasoned veterans in this South Sound Speedway E-Series, they all know that it is only lap 15. There's a lot to go, but that is Jeff Peterson, only about 2 seconds up the road. So lap traffic about to start playing into this battle.
And you can see how much of a gap these top 3 have put on the rest of the field. Presley, who I mentioned was in 4th, is nearly 5 seconds back. That's a third of a lap around here. And it's impressive with all the green flag running we've had, how much distance they've been able to put between themselves and everybody else. They continue to chop away at Jeff Peterson. That could affect this battle. You could use that car as a pick if you're one of those 2 behind.
Read my mind, Joe. That is exactly how I actually got my first oval win on the iRacing service, was doing exactly that on exactly this track and exactly these cars, is using lapped cars as a pick. You position yourself so that the guy in front of you has to slow down, brake check a little bit, and you are able to just take off and get around him. So we're going to have to see what kind of strategy Gill and Johnson try to use on each other. But Travis Barnes looking very, very strong in that P3, just kind of holding and watching and waiting, figuring out where he's got more speed than Johnson. So he's a little bit of a sleeper here.
And now they're getting within about 5 car lengths of Peterson. Oh, a little bit off the bottom. That's going to open the door for the 14. He does get his nose in, but Gill denies him. Gets his speed off of 2, nice and smooth. But starting to see some cracks from Isaiah Gill. Could this be the sort of thing that the 14 has been waiting for?
It could be. You know, we talked about this being a rhythm track. Well, it's also one of those tracks that you really have to stay on your toes because it does get almost monotonous, constantly turning like that, and just the merest mistake can open up the door. And there you see that is Peterson doing a very nice job getting out of the way. At least I thought he was, but now he's going to get in the way of the second and third car there of Johnson and Barnes. That's going to slow them up massively.
Yeah, just unfortunately didn't lift on his way out of there. And so both of them had to compromise their lines. And speaking of compromise, here we go, side by side through 3 and 4. Travis Barnes to the inside of the Fireball machine. The 14 in the black to the high side. He's starting to lose out, but he's fighting valiantly to see if he can retain second. Barnes is not giving up either. Down through 3 and 4 yet again. It's multiple laps in the making and actually starting to make inroads back up to the side of him. Johnson Jr. almost thought he had it. Now he's starting to lose the overlap, and it appears to be gone. Barnes has sealed the deal.
He has, but I thought for a second that crossover line that Johnson was going to get a little bit more momentum there, but not happening well enough. Now he's just going to tuck up behind. They're going to try to catch back up to Isaiah Gill in front as Gill starts to catch Scott Degenstein in front of him. Oh, and here it comes to the inside. Eric Johnson Jr. He gets that move caught. Barnes sleeping ever so slightly there. He's got the advantage. Barnes going to try to continue a little bit of momentum on the outside, but I don't think he's got it. Oh, maybe he does, but there comes that lap traffic of Degenstein getting in the way. Ooh, there's contact.
And the car may have disappeared at the exact wrong time as well for Travis Barnes, because Degenstein is having a horrible time with his internet. That may be what caused him to run into him. So he will stay in third. He doesn't lose too much, but he could have some damage on the car. We'll have to watch his pace and see if he'll drop off after this. Gill is still your leader. Johnson Jr. back up to second with that move. Isaiah is continuing to lap car after car. We're down to 10 on the lead lap currently.
Yeah, Isaiah's pace is really blistering here. His last lap was a 15 dead. Some of the guys in the back, those top 10, they're off by 0.2 to 0.5 of a second. So very, very slow. Runners across the board there. You see there, that is Sean Jones that he's been able to get by. But don't count out Johnson Jr. I thought he may have had a little bit of a run there, but he is certainly keeping this close and not letting Isaiah Gill get away too much.
Let's go to Torres. Battle for P6 along with Dichinowski. Once again, we've seen these two side by side before, and Torres still trying to use that apron to get the car to rotate. He's not been scared off of it completely, but the pass attempt fails. He'll have to settle for 7th for the time being.
And up ahead of them, that is Christopher White, he fell back a little bit there during that fight, but he was able to pull himself back up and ahead. And yeah, that's exactly right about trying to use that apron there, Joe. It's almost like, you hear some of the Formula One drivers deliberately sending the car into an oversteering moment to try to catch it and get it pointed the right way. It's exactly what Torres is trying to do here. It's very, very high risk, high reward, but if you can get it right, you can shave off 0.1 of a second off of this very, very quick lap.
It seems to be working quite well, because once again, he is all on top of that orange number 18 off of turn 4. Is he going to look to the inside? He's very, very close to that rear Nerf bar. And nope, he's not close enough. Still, this time he gets another good shot. Almost pushes him down into turn 3, but still doesn't shove his nose down the inside. There it is.
There he starts to go on it. Is he going to be able to make that move stick? That's the question. He's got a better run here on the 18. Torres does. Ooh, looks like he got a little bit wide, but he's going to be able to hold it down. And there it goes. That is exactly what you want to do there for Dichinowski. If you are in that outside line, though, on that last corner, you want to try to pinch him down, scare him off into the apron as much as you can.
Oh, but it didn't work. He wasn't scared away. Torres now claims 6th place. Dichinowski into 7th. Great pass there from the 99. And if I'm not mistaken, they're starting to catch Derek Presley a little bit. They're in 5th.
They are indeed. They're pulling up to him very, very quickly as White able to get around Presley, and there they go. And that is the number 4 of Presley trying to get passed by Torres. He's going to dive super low again. Presley washes wide out to the outside. That's going to allow for Torres, and it looks like Dichinowski to get through.
I wonder if Derek has some sort of damage, if he's smacked the outside wall at some point, because this is way off the pace. Yeah, he hit a 16 last time through. Oh, and we spinning across. That's Dichinowski. Presley's going to run into him. Still no caution. There's the caution.
Oh, just at the nick of time. That almost collected some of our leaders there. That was very scary. But we're going to jump back to the replay here. You can see the 18 of Dichinowski, that orange and blue machine. coming his way through here. That's the 4 of Presley behind him, Torres right in front of him. They work their way onto the main stretch right now. You can see it, and there's the contact, and there's the hit with Presley.
I think Dichinowski maybe clipped the outside wall, and that's what caused him to spin to the inside. Oh yeah, that's exactly it.
Yep, you nailed it, Joe. That's exactly what it is.
Fortunately, we saw Presley and his hard contact into the side of number 18. The good news is they do have a spare car, so if he does feel like it's damaged, there's the view from Presley. Either of them can pop into pit lane and take that spare car, and they will be good as new, can run the rest of the way unless they get more damage, in which case after that they'll just have to get it repaired.
Yeah, and even though these cars are notorious for being very simple and very easy to repair, it still does take a hot minute, and if you have to do it under green, you are going to go multiple laps down. So wanting to take advantage of everything that he can. Now, this is lap 47. We are about 10 or so laps away from our competition caution mandatory pit stop cycle. So everybody just going to go here for a 10-lap shootout and see what happens until we get to that point.
Still have all 12 cars out on track, but we're down to 7 of them on the lead lap at this point. Waiting for them to double up and we'll get going. Mustang pace car still leading Isaiah Gill up at the front. Eric Johnson Jr. will get another shot here to try and attack at the start, as he'll be lining up in P2 just to the outside. There we go now, double file. So 1 to go. So far, it has been the Isaiah Gill show, leading pretty much every lap of this race thus far, but has not been able to scamper away as much as he would like. Out of 3 and 4, Mustang pace cars in the lane. Green flag is out, off the line. Decent for Gill, but Johnson suddenly finds himself swamped by Barnes. He's underneath him and into second place.
Yeah, Barnes finally able to get that pass done, and now he's going to set his eyes clearly on Isaiah Gill in front of him. But that's going to be easier said than done, I think, with the pace that we've seen Gill have. Torres able to keep up in P4 for the moment, and that is Christopher White right behind him. So this top 5 still relatively close as opposed to what we saw in the closing stages of that last green flag session.
That's definitely what Chris Torres needed. Remember, he was about 4 or 5 seconds, actually probably more than that, behind the top 3 before the caution. So this brings him back to the fray, and it does appear like he's got decent enough pace to stick with him, at least on these first few laps.
It does indeed, and if I'm running the calculus, if I am Chris Torres, I'm looking at this going, I've got to go. As Johnson makes a move down to the inside, maybe a little bit of contact there. That's going to allow for Torres to close up massively. Takes a look maybe to the outside there, trying to run a different line, carry a little bit more momentum on Johnson. He's going to have the crossover. He goes down to the inside. Johnson tries to squeeze a little bit, doesn't let him. Torres washes up the track ever so slightly, but still has that preferred inside line as they go into 1.
It's getting fierce here in the battle for third. Johnson ruining his attack on the number 11 for sure. As to his inside, Chris Torres, continues to hassle him. Eventually has to give it up, though. This has lost them multiple tenths of a second up to our top 2, though.
It has indeed, and most importantly for Chris Torres right now, it's allowed for Christopher White to catch up right behind him. Very, very much in the heat of that battle. Now that car trailing behind them, that is Matthew Dichinowski. He is a couple of laps down, so he is not technically involved in this scrap, as it were.
We've also lost Jeff Peterson. He appears to be in pit lane taking repairs. I'm not sure what for, but he has been sitting in there for quite some time. Getting close to that competition caution, and that, of course, will erase this battle and also erase the lead for that Isaiah Gill has managed to garner. Lap 59 into lap 60, so should be coming any moment now as the 24 crosses the start-finish stripe down into 1 once again. Travis Barnes, at least momentarily, has his internet under control. Oh, and we got a battle once again behind them as Christopher White and Chris Torres are going to swap positions. Christopher White manages to get up into fourth.
Yeah, White was able to sell a really good move. Looked like he just caught Torres napping coming off of turn 4, able to move his way up. That's allowed for him to get by, and now he is going to start to look up ahead at Eric Johnson, just waiting for this competition caution to come out at any point here. But that's going to be a good start for him. That battle very significant. He will now, if he's able to stay there, start on the outside of row 2, so he'll be able to move himself up a row when we get back after this competition caution.
Gill puts a lap on Sean Jones. Someone needs to go over to the steward's booth and knock on the door, see if they've fallen asleep, because we are well past that halfway point. Not sure if we're going to get this competition caution or not. Maybe they've called it off since they had a caution so close to it. But we didn't see. In fact, only one person has been in pit lane, and that's Jeff Peterson, who I mentioned was getting repairs. He's back out and running. Hopefully we'll get some clarification on that. Meanwhile, Gill now up to 0.6 of a second over Barnes. Barnes 0.4 of a second over Eric Johnson. Our top group is spreading apart.
It very much is. Gill's just starting to press that advantage as we right on board here. And here comes that competition caution right as we do so, Joe. Everybody's starting to line up to head down into the pits.
All right. Now, I believe you can lose positions in this competition caution, so it will be important for the drivers to hit their marks, get a clean in and out, as well as not speed. We should also remind them that there is a pit speed limit that they have to obey, or else they will be penalized.
There is a pit speed limit, and as rudimentary as these cars are, you can imagine there is no automatic pit speed limiter on them, so you've got to be checking your pit speed with your right foot. There we see Gill diving down. One of the quirks here at Lanier, you've got to go around all the way around here. Those pit lanes, those pit boxes, not where you'd expect them to be.
Yeah, you can see them trying to find their way to their box. See them hopping in soon. It's like I said, it stretches all the way around, and Gill will be the first one in. Stops nice and cleanly. Not seeing anybody miss their mark quite yet. Love that they've got sort of, I guess you could call them the F1 style jacks too. They have to do the fronts and then the backs instead of NASCAR style where it's rights and lefts.
You know, Joe, I have to admit, I don't think I've ever seen these Legends get tires, so that's a completely new thing for me there. That's a fun little quirk of the system. But it looks like, at least for your top 3, everybody out in the exact order that they started in the pit zone.
Yeah, no change there. So as they cycle back out, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global SimRacing Channel. We'll come back with the second half here of Round 7 in the South Sound Speedway E-Series here at Lanier. back to the Lanier National Speedway. We're getting ready to go green once again after our competition caution for the South Sound Speedway eRacing series. They are going to be restarting on lap 77 for round 7 here. See if we can go green all the way to the end. So far, only one caution, and then the competition caution. You can see them now getting double file. The lights should go off on the Mustang pace car. Isaiah Gill is your leader, and Travis Barnes currently sits in second. He's been in a hard battle with Eric Johnson Jr., swapping that spot back and forth multiple times throughout this race. I expect that to continue between the pair of them, except now it will start with Barnes ahead, but not in the desired line. Green flag is out. Isaiah Gill gets a good jump, but so does Travis Barnes. He immediately gets to the bottom, and we've already got a spinner. That's Chris Torres. And is that Johnson Jr. around as well?
No, I think Johnson, it's White that got caught up in that. Johnson able to continue on, but we are going to get a yellow flag here, Joe.
Yeah, looks like maybe Christopher trying to get low to avoid the spinning number 99. Let's watch on the replay here. Christopher's in the black dark, Torres in the black and red.
Yeah, looks like that just forced him down onto the apex there. Not sure who that final car was that got collected. I think that may be Degenstein, unless I'm crazy. But not a whole lot of damage there to everybody. Looks like it was just spins and slams on the brakes, so everybody threw okay, as it seems.
I think there was a slight bit of contact with the 4 of Derek Presley. And there was also a big side swipe from Andy Johnson, getting him involved. And the last car spinning kind of on its own was Ryan McLeod, who had just gotten his lap back with the lucky dog last time by. Now, unfortunately, this has already put him one lap down again.
Very unlucky break there from Ryan, and apologies to those guys that I got wrong. Coming around there, as there you see getting their laps back. That looks like it is McLeod, actually, so he may be able to restart on the lead lap. In fact, may be able to catch that lucky dog just right. But at the pointy end of the field, it is Isaiah Gill still, Travis Barnes, Eric Johnson Jr., and now Christopher White going to take his shot at starting off P4.
All right, then. But now, McLeod did go by, but he's slowing up, and he's letting it back through. So maybe he got some false information about the lucky dog here, because he did spin, so the sim may have counted him as part of the incident. Yeah, he's coming back into line without taking his lap back. That's a bit of sadness for the number 88, because it looked like maybe he could get back into this thing. In fact, he's going slowly at the bottom as we come back green. Not sure what's going on with him. Isaiah Gill takes the restart ahead of Travis Barnes. Barnes can't get down low quite as quickly, but instead keeps the overlap with our leader, at least through turns 1 and 2, not quite through 3 and 4. There was a glance of hope, but nothing doing. Instead, the battle for third starts to erupt. Johnson Jr. and White.
Yeah, White trying to make that outside line work, and work it does, getting some mega momentum going into the braking zone into turn 3. Oh, big loose wiggle there, and oh, we've got cars spinning around. That is the number 4 of Derek Presley behind. That wiggle getting caused, and it looks like that's Janowski getting into him. That wiggle all caused by Eric Johnson Jr. coming off loose off of turn 4.
Pearson was the yellow and red car also getting involved. That's the initial hit there. And that's Janowski in the orange and blue, just finding himself T-boning that other car, unfortunately. So another quick caution. Cautions sometimes do breed cautions, especially in oval racing, especially in short track oval racing. This has given us a spate of issues and slowdowns. As the first part of the 120 lap event was almost caution-free, save for one.
Yeah, and that can happen. You know, everybody putting new tires on this car. You kind of think that they're going to handle exactly like they were. Track temperature down a few degrees, down to 82, so still a little bit chilly here for these cars. They're going to have a little bit of trouble getting those tires up to temperature. If they can get through 2, maybe 3 laps, I think it'll be a little bit cleaner. But I also think these drivers know that we're coming down to 30 laps to go, and it's time to put the pedal to the metal.
That's true. It is getting to the dying stages. So if you're going to make a move, especially if you're not in amongst those top 4, you really got to start hustling, because it seems to be those top runners that have the best pace of anybody on the track. I wouldn't put it past Chris Torres to get back into things. He's still in 5th, second to last of the drivers on the lead lap. Last one is Derek Presley currently. But Torres, on one of the restarts that we had, really stuck to the back of the top drivers and at least showed that he can do it when he's not being held up in a battle.
Very much so, and he's got that pace. The other thing I think to watch on this restart is going to be Eric Johnson Jr. starting in the 4th position to the outside, that non-preferred line. It's the first time we've seen him out there. It'll be interesting to see what he does, and with Torres in 5th, that's going to be a real fascinating battle, both of them looking to overtake White in 3rd.
Riding on board. I'd love to see the restart here with the 14. Let's stay right here. This gives us a great view as the pace car is in. Green flag is out. Decent start there for Eric Johnson Jr. Keeps a little bit of overlap. So does Barnes, but Barnes gets loose. And this is actually going to box in the number 14. He's got nowhere to go.
Ooh, and White takes a look to the inside, but I think he may have gotten a little bit of over-rotation coming through that corner, had to catch it ever so slightly. Now Johnson's going to try to fight back him on the outside. Not going to do there, but he's going to try to keep that momentum going on the high side. Not going to work it there. It looks like White has got that low line, and he is sticking to it. But up front, there you see Travis Barnes getting some mega runs on Isaiah Gill. What can he do to challenge our race leader?
Always looking around the outside, as Gill is going to try and defend down into 3 and 4. Oh, he gets loose. And the first mistake we've seen all night from the 24. Caution is out. Miraculously, everybody avoids him.
Oh, that is so lucky from Isaiah that he did not get collected there. We're going to go back on the replay. There you can see it. That is Isaiah in front and Travis Barnes behind him. Now, what happens here is that Barnes gets a good run off of 2. That sets him up to try to go for a really nice crossover maneuver here. There you see Gill. He gets too far down onto that yellow line. That sent him spinning around, a little bit of contact into the rear of the car, but nothing too bad, just a little dink on the Nerf bar. I thought when we looked at that front on, Joe, that there may have been a little contact between Barnes and Gill. Looking at it from above, I don't think there was.
The closest of them was Dichinowski in the number 18. He came inches away from hitting him and somehow kept it out of the side of that car. Wow, okay, this changes things. Gill, who up to this point has led every single lap of the race, is now down in 6th. Dichinowski is going to be the last one on the lead lap as he's getting a wave around for a lucky dog. But now Travis Barnes is going to lead the restart with Christopher White to his outside, and also Eric Johnson Jr. sitting in 3rd. Now, from what I've seen of that 14, I suspect he's going to try and use this restart to his advantage, being on the inside, and I think he might snooker White.
I certainly think he's got a prime example too. And Joe, you mentioned it in that last caution period, Chris Torres having a little bit of a tendency to hang back at the restarts, let things develop in front of him after that spin. That's exactly what he did there, and he is now in 4th place. So on the non-preferred line, but has a really good view of what's going to happen. So don't be surprised if he just kind of holds it nice and steady and then sends something fun here with about 5 laps to go.
Going to restart with 20 laps to go here as we get double file, and Travis Barnes is going to have control of the field for the first time of the night on the restart. He waits for the Mustang pace car to hop in, and he's off. The green flag is out. It is a good start for the 14. He's already got to the inside and ahead of Christopher White. White tries to fight back using the momentum the long way around of 1 and 2. down into 3 and 4. The cars are up to speed now, though. And I think the 83 might not be able to fight this way for too long. Indeed, he has now lost the opportunity.
And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, Isaiah Gill already up to 5th, starting to challenge Chris Torres and Christopher White for that final podium position. Oh, really low line for Gill there, off of turn 3, but he's got to back out. We have caution again.
I think Ryan McLeod involved in this one. Yes, McLeod and the double aught of Sean Jones, unfortunately the two that have brought out the yellow laundry. Oof, and this is initially caused by the double aught. You're going to see him spin, and then McLeod is going to get a big hit, first with the car and then with the outside wall.
Oh, that's a real nasty hit there from McLeod. Nowhere to go for him, just kind of got collected as we ride on board with him. This one's gonna hurt, Joe. There you see that 00 spinning, bam, bam. Oh, I hope he's got low force feedback settings in his wheel.
Yeah, seriously. And I'm not sure if he's taken a spare car yet either. That was quite a thwack. I'm actually kind of surprised that the car is not smoking, that the engine wasn't blown up from that hit. I guess it was enough low of a speed that maybe he got away with it. Yet another caution here. This is taking away those green flag racing laps, and that is horrible news for Isaiah Gill, who needs as many laps as he can to try and make overtakes.
You're right, but the one thing that's going to help him here is he's going to be restarting in P5, so he'll be on that preferred inside line. Wouldn't be surprised if we see him kind of do what we saw Eric Johnson Jr. do on that last restart, maybe sell one up the inside of Chris Torres, going to be starting on the outside. We saw him start to get into a good battle with Christopher White, the three of them, Gill, Torres, and White. So I think that will continue, and if Gill plays this right, he may be able to sneak that podium position and maybe try to get his way back up front with about 13 laps to go here.
Still waiting for them to double up, and then we'll go racing. Down to, actually up to, I should say, 8 cars on the lead lap. Andy Johnson back on there now. Unfortunately, everybody now that is not on the lead lap is multiple laps down. Jones 4 laps, McLeod 7, Peterson 8, and we've lost Scott Dagenstein, our only DNF so far tonight. So we come around 3 and 4. Travis Barnes waiting for the green flag, and there it is. Very good jump. But look at the 14. He is a savvy driver on the restarts. He's not going to allow him to be jumped by Christopher White. White having to play defense on Torres, who's also a little bit off the racing line thanks to Isaiah Gill. His fight back to the front has him to the inside and maybe up to 4th place. There it is.
I thought for a second Gill was going to get pinched down there by White, but Gill able to make it work. Now he's got to set his sights on that final podium position as Johnson tries to hunt down Barnes in front, making that line work all the way around. And here comes Gill down to the inside.
Woo!
Oh,
Scared him.
His nose to White, and White backs off. That's shades of Ayrton Senna right there.
And White actually hit the wall, losing it off of 4, but no caution. He keeps it going, stays out of everybody's way. Just brilliant stuff from Isaiah Gill. As we do have a caution now, and Dichinowski involved. Looks like Andy Johnson.
I think.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's the initial wreck with White there that you saw. And then, unfortunately, Dichinowski just starts to lose it in a very slow bit of contact as Johnson tries to woe the car up and climbs on top of him briefly.
Just wanted to be very friendly there. But no, that will happen every once in a while with these cars. But nobody looks like there's lots of serious damage. Nobody having some serious damage there. But this will set up probably about, if my math is right, Joe, a 4-lap shootout.
I think you might be correct. If not, it'll be very close to that. And Isaiah Gill is up to 3rd. I think a win is still very much a realistic possibility for the 24. After what looked like he had thrown it away If he can just get the right restart, if he can just attack Travis Barnes at the right time. But he's also got to hope that we don't get a caution because we do not have a green-white checkers today.
Very true, and the thing for Gil is here, we've seen some really great starts out of that third place position, but you mentioned it on that last lap, on that last restart, Joe, just how good Eric Johnson Jr. was off of the line, not being caught out at all, so Gil's going to have his hands full trying to get the jump on both him and Barnes on this restart.
In fact, all three of them seem like they've become pretty experienced with these front of the pack restarts. And car coming out, I don't think that was the pit exit. I think that's going to be a penalty for Christopher White there, who came out the in. As we go double file, Travis Barnes once again will have control. And it's going to be a restart with 3 to go, actually. The number 24 is going to have to be on top of it. Green flag is out very quickly. And he is on top of it. He managed to catch the 14 napping. The two are side by side. We got a spin behind him. Cars getting into one another. Are we going to see a caution? That's staying green so far as they come around once again. He's got it up to second place for Isaiah Gill. Almost getting down to the inside, tipping Isaiah Gill up the... And Eric Johnson Jr. takes it back. Gill is going to spin. Travis Barnes with 2 to go, still leading as everybody behind him squabbling amongst each other. White flag is out. 1 to go for Travis Barnes, who's going to steal the show today. Didn't lead the most laps, but as he comes around past an upside-down car, victory for the number 11 in round 7.
Oy, and that was just an absolutely infinitesimal contact, I think, between Johnson and Gill. Exactly the kind of thing that happens on the last laps of a short track race. But that ending Gill's day, putting him back down into 7th and letting Johnson hold on to that second place position. But look at Chris Torres taking home that 3rd place final podium position.
Great job by him. Rubbin is racing, as they say, and we'll see how the drivers feel about that as we'll get the driver interviews as well as the unofficial results after this. Welcome back to Lanier National Speedway. Round 7 wound up going to Travis Barnes. But it was Eric Johnson Jr. who followed him home. He was threatening for parts of the race, but he always seemed to wind up having to fight for that P2 instead of being able to challenge the leader. Chris Torres, with a consistent and smooth run from 8th to 3rd, has got to be pleased with himself. as Derek Presley finishes in 4th. Andy Johnson recovers to a P5, rounding out the top half of the field. A driver with a lot of action today, Matthew Dichinowski, in 6th.
Isaiah Gill led the most of this race, but fell trouble to a couple of incidents and ends up in P7. Christopher White was running with the leaders for a good chunk of it, but had the same thing happen. He finishes the lap down in 8th. Then we have guys who finished well a couple of laps down, Sean Jones and Ryan McLeod in 9th and 10th. 11th was Jeff Peterson, who was 7 laps down, and Scott Degenstein, who had a very rough run of the day, finishing in 12th. A 42 laps down.
Well, we've got our winner ready to talk to us. Travis Barnes going to join us here. And Travis, I guess patience is a virtue. You didn't get the lead until late in the race, but you didn't need it until the end of the race.
Yeah, the car just came in really good when the track really changed once we those tires. So get the car to rotate a lot more nicer. I really ate up the right front tire that first session. And the second session came to me, and then capitalized on mistakes and got the lead and took the win.
It seemed like you, Johnson Jr., and Gill really had the measure of those restarts, especially by the end. I mean, what was the secret? Is there any special trick that you figured out?
I'm not going to reveal that on here. Usually I like to keep that to myself because that's how I get the jump. But yeah, there's an art form to these restarts, especially when that pace car pulls off.
We were talking at the start of this race how this combination of the Legends car at Lanier gets used quite a bit, of course, being 2 pieces of free content. Used to be the rookie cars even here on iRacing. How much experience did you have in this combo coming into it?
Quite a bit, actually. Usually I don't race the Legends car often. I don't like making setups, and all those guys are really good and beyond my league, so tend to stick to fixed stuff or usually super late models, stuff like that. But you can transfer a lot from that to here. So all in all, I enjoyed it. The wheelbase is a little bit shorter, so it makes it harder to control, but fun car to drive.
I'd say it paid off in the end because of victory today. Congratulations, Travis, and looking forward to talking to you at round 8.
Thank you, sir.
That was our winner, Travis Barnes. And up next, I believe we've got second place. DJ has caught up with Eric Johnson Jr.
Eric, you were up there challenging for the entirety of that race. A little bit of contact there at the end with Isaiah, but that's what happens on short tracks. But certainly looked like a fun day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Both Travis and Isaiah both put on one heck of a run, and it was fun to be up here side by side with them, and for the majority of the race, not make any big mistakes.
It looked like that was the key. And, that first half of the race, absolutely clean, pretty much green to green. How frustrating is it when you're up there having those battles and you get sort of those cautions after cautions after cautions? How frustrating is it, and how hard is it to sort of regain composure and get back into the game mode?
As much as it can be irritating and kind of get you out of your rhythm, it's kind of a good chance to catch your breath, kind of understand the situation, how many laps are left. So I enjoy having a moment to catch my breath like that and really figure out what's going on. But I wish we could have been a little bit more green there at the end, but it was definitely still a blast.
Well, it was a blast to watch, I'll tell you that. So we're headed on next week. How are you liking your chances?
I believe it is North Wilkesboro, if I'm not mistaken, for the street stocks. But I'm excited. The street stocks have always been a fun class. I'm sure you'll keep seeing Isaiah and Travis up here competing, but I do want to give a big congrats to Travis on that win, by the way. But hopefully we're able to get up there and break our winless streak here.
Well, we'll be certainly watching and having a good time. Again, Eric, congratulations on that second place.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
Of course. And as we move along, Joe, I believe we've got Isaiah Gill here in the booth, the leader for most of the race.
Yes, but unfortunately finishing in 7th today. Isaiah, initially it was a mistake that sent you down the order, and then you were making that brilliant drive back up to the front. Your feelings about the second half of today's event?
I feel like I ran the race great. The second half, the track temperature must have changed, and I didn't improvise in our race strategy, and the car was braking extremely loose. and I just couldn't hold on to it.
Now, from what we could tell, it looked like there was just the slightest bit of contact between you and Eric. It was the end of the race, so I imagine tensions were high. Do you figure that's just a racing deal out there? Are there any ill feelings?
Oh no, it's definitely a racing deal. It's done with Eric Johnson Jr. I pinched him down in the last corner to get his runoff of try to beat him up high, and there was a slight contact, and I tried to save it, and it snapped back to the wall. So nothing on him.
We're going to a somewhat similar short track out to Sobo, but it's going to be in very different cars in the street stocks. Think you got a shot to finally get yourself up to the top step of the podium?
I assume so, because usually I don't like to finish anywhere but second, third, or never first. So it should be interesting.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for you. And again, commiserations on what was looking like a good day until it wasn't.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Isaiah Gill, who unfortunately had to settle for 7th today. But it's going to wrap up our coverage. And of course, before we go, we want to give a big thank you to the sponsors of the series, starting, of course, with Key Property Services. You can find them at kpsinc.net. And United Roofs. If you want to get an estimate from them, you can go to unitedroofs.com. Thanks goes out to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts, and we've listed them here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. We've got her Bandcamp there listed on the screen as well. Thanks to the team today, DJ Sean and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media, which includes Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store at simply gsrc.storeenvy.com, but we've got a link in the description below if you just want to click that instead. But while you're down there, don't forget, make sure and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Once again, South Boston is our next round in the street stocks. That'll be Saturday, January 16th at 10 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, we'll see you on the track.